Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking a minute to join us in talking about AccuTerm 8 and what's new and tips for deployment. Again, we've got a great presentation in store for you today. We've got Paul Giobbe joining us. We've got Pete Schellenbach joining us. And we've also have Patrick Payne with us to talk about AccuTerm IO. With that, I want to first kick off and talk about just the agenda and what we have in store for you. So we're going to kick off with Paul Giobbe with a community update. We have Pete Schellenbach leading what's new in AccuTerm 8, along with tips for deployment. Like I mentioned, Patrick Payne will talk about AccuTerm IO, or AccuTerm Web as you knew it in the past. And then we'll come back to Pete to talk about the roadmap in AccuTerm 8 and beyond, and then circle back with Paul in closing remarks. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Giobbe.
Hello, everybody. We're super excited to welcome you to this webinar. This is, I think, our biggest webinar to date. It's just some fantastic names on the attendee list, a lot of old friends and acquaintances, and we appreciate you taking time. At Zumasys, we love multi-value. For those of you who don't know, Zumasys is almost a 20-year-old company, but about 5 years ago, we took a hard left-hand turn into multi-value, or you could say back into multi-value. We purchased OpenQM and JBase, two wonderful databases that are alternatives to many of the platforms you run on. We've been very aggressive about promoting something called MVConnect, which adds RESTful services and the ability to put a web UI on your application. And of course, AccuTerm and Pete came on board, and it's just been a wonderful addition. We truly love multi-value, and our goal is to bring energy and excitement back to the market. So I'm not going to give you a pitch on our other products today, but what I did want to do is share a little bit about what's going on in the community, which I think is unique and something that hasn't happened, at least that I've seen since the late 80s. At the end of the day, we love the apps that you run on, and we want to extend them and make sure they're ready for the future. One of the things we've done to kind of stoke some community interest, this is about a 6-month-old news, so many of you know this already, but we ran a multi-value idea contest where we pledged $10,000 to the person that came up with the best idea on how to advance the multi-value data model. And we named a winner after receiving something like 200 entries. We wanted that input selfishly to advance our database products, but we also wanted to get a temperature on the market. And this is guiding our development and guiding the direction we're going as a company. And to me, this was very exciting to see that people were alive and well and interested in promoting the data model like us. Shortly after that, we launched something called Pic MultiValue.com. This was a rebrand of the logo. We provided links to all the common news groups. But the main thing we did is we started a video training series that was designed to allow you to put in front of a new developer that didn't know anything about Pic and give them a fighting chance of understanding how the architecture works, how to write a program, how to retrieve data. And we're continuing to promote that site heavily, which I'll talk about more in a minute. A few months ago, we partnered up with our friends over at OnGroup, and many of you know about VSCode. It is the most popular mainstream editor out there. It's a Microsoft technology, but it's open source. And we saw that this was a fantastic opportunity to allow modern developers to edit their code using a mainstream developer. So we partnered up with them and created MV Basic, which is a free extension that's available in the VS Code marketplace, which is pretty exciting. And then just last week, we launched our third video on the website. This one is on Pic Basic and TCL and is getting phenomenal feedback. I encourage you to take a look at it. One person said that they learned more in this video than they had experienced in the 42 years of kind of assimilating Pic knowledge, on an ad hoc basis. So it's designed to kind of jumpstart your programmers, and we're not stopping at video number 3. We have many more to go, and we certainly would love to hear your feedback on where to go with that training series. And the last thing I wanted to share with you on the community side is we've recently launched a Facebook page. And I know what you're all thinking, Jan, here goes another effort to, get the market to talk and communicate. But what I wanted to share with you was the mechanics behind this group. So we've hired a third-party analytics company, and we're basically taking all the customers, pick customers from our Salesforce database, from our accounting system, everybody who's ever bought Pete's software, our LinkedIn contacts, and we're basically contacting them on social media. It's about 15,000 people, and you may have seen one of these messages. It kind of gives a generic thing like this that says, our research shows that you're a person interested in multi-value, and we wanted to invite you to like this group. And our goal, again, is to build a more vibrant, engaged community. What I thought I'd share with you today was some of the results in just the first 3 weeks of us doing this. So the engagement we're getting on this Facebook page is surpassing everything else out there on the market. There was a post this morning about an hour and a half ago that already has 30 comments. And what we're finding is that there are productive people in this market that want to collaborate, that want to share, that want to advance the Pic model. So I'd highly, highly encourage you to go to Facebook and like this group. We have an independent committee formed that spans well beyond Zumasys to contribute content. We intend to issue additional abilities for people to contribute, and it's an exciting conversation happening. At the end of the day, before I turn it over to the AccuTerm crew, Zumasys' goal is really to provide a vision and a path forward for these apps and generate some excitement in the process. And we're voting with our pocketbook to do that and making investments. There's a clear developer shortage in this market. That inherently is going to be a challenge for all of your organizations. We've built our own development group, but really the key is to make our stuff as appealing to younger developers, and that's the DevOps crowd. We're doing that by meeting them where they're at with things like VSCode, by running applications natively, by putting on web UIs, and ultimately we're articulating a new vision around webifying your apps. And all of this comes from the nearly 15 years that we spent in mainstream infrastructure and cloud. We are infrastructure-minded or DevOps-minded people. We certainly have strong Pic roots, but we look at it through the lens of the person that's most likely going to be inheriting your Pic system in the future is going to be the DevOps crowd, and we need to make our products and our tools and our social media, networking and the video training and all those things. We need to meet them where they're at. At the end of the day, Zumasys is focused on the community, and that's in contrast to the profit-first mentality that we've all seen in this market. We're super excited about the engagement we're getting. It just makes us want to keep doing more of this. So please join the Facebook group. Please know that we're super grateful for you being interested in AccuTerm and being vital customers of that product, and we're super excited to be hosting this webinar today. So thank you, and with that, I'll turn it over to the world famous Pete Schellenbach.
Well, thank you, Paul. This is Pete, and I know most of you probably know me. So I'm here to talk about AccuTerm 8, the new things, and some ideas on deploying. Let's see, AccuTerm 8 on the desktop, web, and mobile platforms. And I think we missed a page. Okay, so AccuTerm 8 was released last month on the desktop and web versions. Maybe we did the desktop back in September. I don't know. It's been recently done. It's out there. People are using it. It's great. One of the things that is new with AccuTerm 8 now is that we've changed the licensing model from the old completely trust-based license to kind of a more managed licensing scheme. And we've added maintenance. I think we added maintenance about a year ago for AccuTerm 7.3. So those people that were on maintenance from AccuTerm 7 are automatically getting updates to AccuTerm 8 now, which is the beauty of doing a maintenance model. The maintenance is an annual subscription. You get free upgrades on future releases, and I would expect you're going to see more updates more frequently, and maybe smaller ones, but they'll just keep coming. With maintenance, you get access to, on the desktop version, the premium features, which is file report at this point, and the resume session resilience. We may add some more premium features in the future, but right now those are the things that you get access to when the maintenance is in effect. And maintenance also entitles you to use the web and the mobile versions of AccuTerm. One of the questions that has come up in this is what happens if your maintenance expires? Your desktop version of AccuTerm will keep working. If it was licensed, it'll keep working. It's just that the premium things will stop working, and the access to the web and the mobile will not work until you update your subscription. And with the desktop version, there's two license options now. There's a user license, which is kind of like Office 365, where a user is allowed to install the product on multiple computers, like a home laptop and a Office desktop. It's a 2-for-1 licensing. And then we've just added device licensing, which is kind of like the old style license where each computer has its own license, but it's a 1-for-1 option there. It's a little simpler, and we'll talk about licensing in a few minutes. So AccuTerm 8, the desktop version, these are the highlights. The user interface has been updated, and that was actually quite a significant undertaking. The old user interface was using the Windows MDI model, which has been deprecated by Microsoft for quite a while now. And it goes all the way back to like AccuTerm 97 when we started using that model. So it's been around as part of AccuTerm forever. So changing that was really a big deal. We've changed the style of the application so that you can see that it's a little bit more simple and monochrome and not so frilly. This seems to be the style many of the current web apps are taking, and we're using the same theme for the web version and for the desktop version now. So at least it'll be kind of a consistent interface as you go from one to the other. So with the lack of the MDI interface now, we have tear-off tabs and multiple main windows and all kinds of very cool things. This particular screenshot, you can see there's a little thumbnail at the top. What you should see, I don't know if I move my cursor if you can see it, is it should be showing the cursor on that thumbnail, dragging that thumbnail to another part of the screen. So the idea is you can pick any tab on your AccuTerm window and move it to someplace off of AccuTerm, and it'll open up in its own main window. You can move tabs between each other or between main windows back to where they came from. It's all really flexible. And you can have as many windows and as many tabs as you want. So it's just a really nice new interface update. So that's our tear-off tabs. One of the things that the MDI interface allowed you to do is to kind of rearrange like session windows inside of the main window. You can't do that anymore. Either the session window takes up the entire main window, or you can take multiple session windows from each of your tabs and tile them, but you don't have the ability to individually size and move the smaller tiled windows, but we still do allow you to tile them. Okay, so next very cool feature after the tear-off tabs is something called programmer's mode. So this kind of goes back to my own personal history of watching people use AccuTerm and other things like PuTTY. I'm going, why? We have AccuTerm. Why are you using PuTTY? And one of the main reasons was because PuTTY had this programmer's mode kind of by default. As you change the window size, it tells the system that you've changed it, and the number of columns and rows adjust. And if you're in a program or an environment that understands a screen resize signal, and is able to adapt to it, then this works great. So you can see in this case here, this is the JED editor from JBase, and the screen size here is 115 by 74. And if I just took the corner and dragged it smaller or larger, that number of columns and rows would change, and the editor would reformat the screen based on the new columns and rows. So it's very handy for programmers, and I think was probably the biggest reason that users still were using PuTTY instead of AccuTerm, and now there is no excuse. So it works with programs that understand the screen resize signal. Not everything does, like ED under D3 will not, but like VI and Unix will, or a Bash shell. And I imagine more modern programs that are developed will respond to that signal. And the other highlight I wanted to show is the QuickConnect screen. So in AccuTerm 7 and earlier releases, we had a connection wizard, which had all kinds of stuff that kind of walked you through building a new connection, and it did serial ports and modems and stuff that we don't use anymore. So AccuTerm 8, although it still will support serial ports and modems, they're not shown in the QuickConnect screen because nobody really uses those. What it shows you is you can pick a telnet or a secure shell, and soon a WebSocket connection, and a server and an IP address and a type, and when you click connect, it's done. You're ready to go. The idea is most of these things are very simple to set up, and probably don't change much. If you need to make more fine adjustments, you can click on the more settings button and it'll open up the entire settings window like you would normally use. But for most things, this is really all you need. And in fact, if you're only connecting to like a single server all the time, you may not even ever have to save your session, because you'll be able to use the same thing I did last time, and it'll just build a new session with those settings as they were done the last time. And okay, so besides the new UI things, the session and layout files are changed. We used to use a setup or a Windows INI style format, name value pair file. Pretty old version, works fine, but everything now seems to be going JSON, and so now in AccuTerm 8, the session files and the layout files are JSON files. The extensions change from ATCF to ATSP or ATLP, and you can open them in any editor and look, and it's just standard JSON. One of the reasons that we did that is that the web and the mobile versions all keep their profiles in JSON, and so we'll have some interoperability between the desktop, web, and mobile using the same file format. When we released 7.3 with maintenance last year, we added the premium feature for file reports. One of the things that we noticed after we put that release out is that people were having a lot of trouble installing the file reports. It just wasn't smooth. It was sometimes confusing. So we've really improved the installation process for file reports, and file reports itself has updated the reporting tool itself. So we worked with Pierre to try to streamline that so that both of our sides were like on the same page, and it should be a lot easier with this release to get file reports installed and running and be up and running it quickly. Then to make the new release work with more of the modern versions of SSH, we've updated the encryption library. So in AccuTerm 7, we've been using the Windows built-in encryption, but in AccuTerm 8, we switched it to using pretty much the latest version of OpenSSL as the encryption library. It just seems to be more robust than what we were able to get from Windows. And along with that, we added some new algorithms that were not available in the old AccuTerm 7, including the elliptic curve key exchange, which seems to be the preferred darling exchange mechanism by OpenSSH now. and stronger hashing using 256 and 512-bit hashing. So we were getting some feedback from sysadmins about our having to use weaker hashing and not wanting to do that. And so although there's probably not a huge problem with the hashing with SSH just because of the way it's used, people wanted stronger hashing. So AccuTerm 8 has it. So next part of AccuTerm 8 is the web version of AccuTerm 8. This is replacing the old AccuTerm Cloud, which was built based on plugins. And the plugin technology used is not supported by any of the modern browsers anymore. When we first did it, it was great. It worked awesome. But the browsers, starting with Chrome and then Firefox and now Edge, do not do plugins. Or if they do them, they are completely different than what we were able to use for AccuTerm Cloud. So we abandoned the plugin idea, and the AccuTerm 8 is done as pure HTML5 and JavaScript. There are no plugins involved. Because of that, we can run this in pretty much any browser, including those on phones and tablets, which is very nice. The web version is made mainly for users that use just terminal-style functionality in AccuTerm. It's not really designed for like developers or programmers and people that need the more advanced parts of AccuTerm, but it does the terminal emulation part really well. As I said, it runs in pretty much any browser now, including browsers on PCs, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, Chromebook. So it's pretty much a cross-platform version of AccuTerm. Access to the web version is from the Zumasys customer portal. So basically, you log into the portal using your email address and password and choose a profile, and you are connected. We'll talk more about that when Patrick talks about AccuTerm IO. The web version has the standard terminal emulations that you're used to in AccuTerm Desktop. The WISE 5060 adds Viewpoint, Viewpoint Enhanced, all of the VTs, PC Monitor. There are some more obscure emulations that are not supported in this, at least not right now, like Viewpoint 60 and Prism. There are very few people that actually use those, and if we find a case where we actually really need them, then we may be able to add them on. But at this point, the standard ones, mostly Viewpoint, are working great. So AccuTerm, from like the original Windows version, even the DOS version, had some form of a scripting language so you could automate certain processes. That was a real challenge to do with the web version. But we do have a limited version of VBA scripting running in AccuTerm Web. So simple scripts that you would send from the host, where you build a little script that says, change my terminal type, or tell me how many columns and rows are on the screen, or change a function key program from this to that. Those scripts will actually run in AccuTerm Web without any change. So that's a very cool feature. We'll probably be expanding those capabilities as time goes on. And that brings us to AccuTerm 8 Mobile, which is the third part of this package that you get for AccuTerm 8. At this point, we're still using the AccuTerm Mobile from the App Store. We've updated the iOS and Android versions probably in September, maybe October, to fix some bugs. Apple came out with iOS 13, which broke some things for the iOS version, so that's all fixed now in the current version on the App Store. If you've already running AccuTerm Mobile, you probably already saw that it had an update and downloaded it, and it should be working great. The mobile version right now is Telnet and secure shell connections. Something in the recent update that was added for AccuTerm Mobile is the ability to do key-based authentication for SSH. The original version only did password and interactive authentication. But now the mobile version will actually do key-based. You just have to create the keys in the desktop version and then import them through things like iCloud Drive into the mobile version. Also, with the update that we did in, I think, October, you can import into the mobile version your desktop configuration file, the .atcf or .atsp file from the desktop AccuTerm. So if you, say you have a desktop configuration where you program, 50 function keys, and it's a lot easier to do them in the desktop version where you have full UI to work with than on a mobile with the little pop-up keyboard and stuff. You can actually take that and import that as a new profile into the mobile. So very cool new feature. So we have a Zumasys customer portal that is used as like a centralized management administration place for AccuTerm. Kind of like other commercial web apps are designed, you create yourself an account for your organization, and then from that account you can manage the application. You are able to manage the users, the licenses, and something we call roles, which I'll explain in just a second. You can create and monitor support tickets. You can set up your AccuTerm profiles that users will see. It's a self-service site, and basically it's a one-time setup, which is, depending on how complex your organization is, it'll take 15 minutes maybe to set up an account. Once it's set up, you would only use it to manage things. So say you need a user leaves your company and you want to replace them with a new one, you can come in and add the new user, remove the old user. If you need to adjust the settings in the profile, maybe you have a function key you want to program that everybody needs to see. This is where you would do that. So the AccuTerm profiles that are used that are referenced here in the customer portal, those are basically the same as the configuration files, the .atcf or .atsp files that you use in the desktop version of AccuTerm. And eventually we'll be able to import those from the desktop into the portal. It's not ready yet, but that's in the works. And there is a provision that we'll be having available pretty soon. I can't say the exact time, but soon, where dealers and ISVs will be able to manage the licenses of their customers as a where the ISV actually is the purchaser of the license, but it's allocated to different customers underneath them. So there is a provision being done to handle that. So at this point, I'm going to hand this over to Patrick Payne to talk about the AccuTerm IO and AccuTerm IO architecture. So I'll let Patrick take it away here, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, well, thank you, Pete. Welcome, everybody. What I'm going to talk about here a little bit is AccuTerm IO, which is still kind of same thing as AccuTerm Web. There's obviously a server side and the browser side. And I want to talk a little more about what this is and why we've done it and the advantages of this new product. So first of all, what is it? It is still your AccuTerm Desktop product, but it's been completely rewritten in modern web HTML5 JavaScript technology. And the question is, why are we doing this? And it's for a foundation for the future. We're making sure this application, your application, is still available to be run in the future. And the whole PC landscape has been changing over the years. If you've seen the Apple commercials, they actually show the younger generation in videos not even knowing what a PC is anymore. They're used to their iPads and their iPhones and their Chromebooks. So we were looking towards the future and saying, hey, we got to make sure that your application is still available for wherever it goes in the future, from a
from a device standpoint, and the next generation of users are used to using whatever device they want. So this includes all your Android-based devices, iPads and tablets, your Apple products, Macintoshes has always been an issue, and even Microsoft. I like to point out that even they are moving this direction. If you've bought a recent PC, you probably run into Windows 10S, where you can't install desktop applications anymore. They're even reintroducing the ARM, the old Windows RT devices are coming back. All these will not be able to run the desktop version. So we're setting up a foundation here to rewrite the application to be able to work in the technology that all these new platforms are using and allowing your application to be available on any device that you wish to deploy. The methodology we're using, and you'll see if you're using any Microsoft products, is very similar. So if you're using Office, you're used to your legacy Office applications such as Word, Excel, Outlook. You'll notice that there's now web versions of all those products. Microsoft is going through the same transition. They are rewriting all their applications for the future in web technology. And if you've used these, you've noticed they're not quite as feature-rich yet as the legacy desktop applications, but they are quickly getting there. And we're taking the same approach. So, as Pete just get, our AccuTerm IO right now is fully supporting all the core emulation things that you're used to, let's say back in the old days when you had your dumb terminals and stuff. It's all got the great WISE emulation, mouse is working. It is truly a web application now running in your browser, but it still acts and looks and works just like your legacy app. And what's the exciting thing about this, and why are we doing this? Again, it's to give you a path for the future, and even more important is as you start to build new UIs, web-based UIs for your application, you usually can't migrate the entire application at one time, so you'll still have some of your legacy character-based looking screens. And this technology gives you the ability to, in a web browser, be offering your new stuff, and then if you need to drop back to the old stuff, we now have a web-based AccuTerm to get you into those items. So let's talk about, kind of how we did this. It was not just a simple, hey, let's just rewrite AccuTerm in JavaScript. We took a full cloud approach of modern development. And so that's the entire life cycle, how we deliver the application, the security around the application, how we're storing and managing your users and your configurations. So even here at Zumasys, we've drank the lemonade that we've been proposing to everybody to rewrite your apps, and we've actually designed this app in full modern stack. And so I'm showing off here and showing all the technologies that are involved. The UI is all in Vue.js. We're using Azure to host all the applications. We're using the security models for authenticating users and storing stuff fully within that stack. So if in the future you need to have additional security such as two-factor and other items such as that, we're able to take advantage of Microsoft technology as they enhance it. And a big piece is, just like you're seeing if you're using, let's say, Outlook on the web, as we send out software updates, and especially security updates, you're getting those immediately. It's not waiting for you to install stuff. And again, it's the delivery of the application. And again, the big benefit on your side as a manager is you're able to manage everything centrally. So you can actually disable access to your application from the AccuTerm portal by taking away access to AccuTerm versus waiting for a Unix admin, for example, to turn off access at the application level. So there's huge benefits and security benefits around this whole model. And again, everything is centrally managed. You don't have to worry about the backups for your config files and all that stuff. So let's now talk about what it does and what it changes and what it doesn't change. Really what AccuTerm IO is doing, and the website pieces we have, is the delivery of AccuTerm. Therefore, if you're coming from a user who's remote or a user who's inside your application, they're hitting our website, logging in with users that you set up to get access to the AccuTerm software. Not actually your server, but the AccuTerm software and the config files. That stuff is then delivered down to your PCs. What we are not changing and what we are not doing by default is your Pic application is not on the internet. Everything on that side stays the same. Therefore, what we're changing is how AccuTerm actually gets to your PC. So you'll go through the security layer, AccuTerm will be deployed, and then your config files will still access your server the same way internally with the same security model that you are currently doing. What we are changing on that side, though, is instead of using Telnet or Secure Shell, we're using web technology. So the product does rely on us installing a small web server on your Pic server, and that is what the AccuTerm software will connect to your server with. And that does require some understanding of web servers. The security model and how all that stuff works is typical web technology, which will be a huge benefit to your normal security officers who understand how to set up that type of stuff. The security around that will be no different than any other type of website technology. And if you choose to expose your system out onto the internet, the methods and processes you will do will be the same as any other web application. So your security officers can set that type of stuff up and use normal stuff to set that up. And I also like to add that the website is adding a second layer of security, meaning your users can't even get that far without getting through AccuTerm IO security to access the software and profiles. And then they will connect to your Pic system via the web server that then your admins can set up and establish the security. So I hope that gives you a quick overview on how that piece is working and what the overall product is doing. Again, what we're trying to get to a point is that in the future, your application will be accessible by an end user no different than any other type of technology they're using, and it's not this more proprietary or legacy type connections. So thank you, and I think head it back to Pete now.
Okay, I'm back to talk about deployment tips with AccuTerm 8. So, slide please change. Too far. First of all, we have resources on the Zumasys website to help you with almost all of these things. And I know the customer portal and the licensing stuff is all new. We have tutorials, we have video walkthroughs at docs.zumasys.com, easy to find and easy to follow. So I really recommend that if you're confused about how to set up your portal account and how the licensing is set up and other questions you might have about getting things started up. There's also an FAQ page for AccuTerm. In that page, you can see there's a whole bunch of tabs. One of them says licensing portal. That's the one that's shown in that sample screenshot. There's questions and answers for all of the common things that users asked when we first started deploying the product, or things like how do I set up my licenses? Do I have to move everybody at once? A variety of things that you probably find very helpful. So remember that the resources are there for you, and if it's not answered in the resources and the documentation, then feel free to either create a ticket or to send a request to Jill or I from just AccuTerm@zumasys.com. We talked about the portal a little bit ago. This is a little bit more on using the portal to deploy AccuTerm Desktop, AccuTerm Web. Just kind of an overview of the processes that you go through. You need to create an account for your company, which is simple. Once the account is created, you log into it with your credentials, and at that point you can create users, roles, profiles, and assign licenses. So I said I was going to talk about roles again. earlier. Roles are just like a category. And you need to have at least one of them set up like user, but you might want to have like user and admin and dev. And it's just groups that you can put users into and profiles into, and wherever they intersect, that's what that user is allowed to do. So you create your roles first if you'd like, or you can create your users and then later you can bulk assign the roles to the users. But every user has one or more roles, and every profile is usable by one or more roles. So you create your users, you create your profiles, which are used by AccuTerm IO, the web version. Profiles are not used at this point by the desktop version. And basically they're the same thing as the .atcf files that you use in the desktop version. You know, you put in your terminal type and your function keys and the host you want to connect to, and you can have as many of those as you wish. They're all stored on the Zumasys customer portal under your portal account. When you create the users in the portal, you have a checkbox basically that allows the user to use AccuTerm Web or not, so you can turn that on or not. Now, if you do enable that, then the admin will receive the user's first login credentials that he then uses to log in and sets his own password at that point. You also use that portal to create the license keys for AccuTerm Desktop. So when the admin creates the user, he'll see the license key, he can copy and paste it or whatever, but also the system will automatically email the license key to the user's email address. The users are assigned are identified by their email address, and it is actually not required that it's a legitimate email address. It doesn't have to be an email at your company domain. It could be, you know, you could use Gmail or Yahoo or whatever. That's fine. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. The user will just not receive the email, and the admin will have to copy their key over to them. So once you've created your users, your roles, your profiles, if you're using AccuTerm Web, then you need to install the AccuTerm IO server, which is something that was in Patrick's diagram. And that's the little web server that we deliver with AccuTerm. And it's basically accepts a WebSocket connection and then converts it to a login process on Unix and Linux, and a telnet connection to the Pic server on Windows. And that comes with the normal web style problems that you have to look at for security certificates and all that interesting thing that Patrick kind of hinted at there. So licensing, there are two licensing models for AccuTerm Desktop. And you need to decide that when you either submit your upgrade order or order a new license for AccuTerm. The user licensing is kind of like the Office 365 style. It's a 2-for-1 license. Each user has to be identified by an email address, and they are allowed to install the product on up to 2 machines. The users are managed in the customer portal, and there's a new feature in the portal now called a bulk import, where you can give the system like a CSV containing all your users and import them all at once. So it simplifies setting up large deployments. The admin can then enable AccuTerm Web or AccuTerm Desktop for each user, and again, the desktop users, you'll see their key at that point, or it will be emailed to them to the email address that's defined there. The user then, when he runs the AccuTerm Desktop version, has to activate that machine. It's a one-time activation. You just copy the key in, put in your email address, click activate, it's done. You don't have to, the user does not have to log into the customer portal or anything. They'll never even see it. It'll just work. It's a one-time activation, and it will stay activated unless the admin comes into the portal and specifically deactivates it, which could happen. I mean, a user may have a laptop and a desktop, and the laptop might die. He needs to replace it with a new one. So the admin can come and deactivate his old laptop, and the user will have his second license key that he can put on the new machine. So a new feature that is just coming online now is device licensing, which is a bit simpler because we don't have to enumerate each user when we set up device licensing. The company will have one license key instead of a separate key per user. It greatly simplifies things because you don't have to define any users, but because it's device-based, you only get one license per device. So if you have a 50 user license, you are allowed to install it on 50 devices. But it does manage itself pretty much automatically. If you wish to use both device licensing for the desktop AccuTerm and AccuTerm Web, you will have to enter the users to use AccuTerm Web because the user has to log into the AccuTerm IO using their email address to get started with the web version. But you can do both. So AccuTerm Desktop, one of the tips I'm going to do here, I'm going to go over here, basically are as a result of things that users have asked over the years that are pretty frequently asked over and over again. Can you use an automated install of AccuTerm? So for example, you want to install the same thing for 50 computers and you don't want to have to go around and do each one separately. There are ways to do that. There's instructions in the online help and in the user's guide on customizing the install process. So AccuTerm is delivered with an EXE installer, but inside that EXE is an MSI. So you're able to extract the MSI installer and use it for deployment in situations where, like GPO, where an MSI is necessary. We don't deliver the MSI directly because it's a real pain to use. It requires a whole lot of like command line options to make it actually work, or at least AccuTerm. But if it's an automated process and you wish to use it, it's all documented and you can use the MSI installer. The installation process can be guided by a configuration file that you put in the same location as the installer. We call it setup.ini, and it's still an old INI style format file. That setup INI file can do things like enter your device licensing key, automatically activate the product after installation, copy settings from previous versions of AccuTerm to the new one, and even do things like install a pre-built profile or ATSP file into the user's documents directory so that it's ready to roll, and deploy custom menus. We have customers that have situations where they don't want users to see like the file transfer functions on the menu or the toolbar, so you can build a custom menu and put it as part of your automated deployment. So when users install AccuTerm, their copy doesn't have those features. In AccuTerm 7.3, we added resume for session resilience, which as customers are moving more and more to cloud-based host machines, the connection sometimes can get a little flaky if it's going over the internet, and when the connection dies, often the process that it's connected to dies, and you might have straggling ports or locks that are still held and all kinds of nasty things. So we added something called resume back then, which is a way to keep keep the Pic process alive even though the connection has gone away, and then reattach it when the same connection comes back in. And there's a way that the two sides are identified so that you can never confuse one connection with another one. And once the two sides reestablish their connection, they're able to resynchronize themselves so that whatever was in progress that was lost when the connection was dropped is just updated automatically when the connection resumes. So it's a pretty cool thing. Right now, it's only working on Linux and AIX, and it requires secure shell. But other than that, it's a pretty cool thing. When you need to when you want to set this up, though, you do have to install a small utility on the Pic server, which is a little session manager that sits between the incoming SSH connection and the Pic process that's running your application. And that's the thing that's able to keep the Pic process alive, even though the SSH connection dies. So it's a small little Unix program that runs just automatically as part of the connection profile script, and is part of how you would need to deploy Resume when you're doing that. We will well, we'll talk about the roadmap in just a minute. So these are just kind of generic tips that people have asked for. How can I do automatic login in AccuTerm? So there might be cases. I know we've had customers that want to do this. For example, they'll have a specific Unix login that everybody logs in as, and then once they're logged in there, their profile runs an application on, their database, and they get authenticated at that point. And the way it's designed is that Unix doesn't really do the authentication, but the application does the authentication. So everybody can log in using the same credentials, and then let the application handle that. And there's a way to do that really, really easily using Secure Shell. You could just append the user's name to the host, like standard user at myhostname dot whatever in SSH, and use the SSH public key authentication mechanism with a key that's built with no password, and AccuTerm will immediately connect them and log them in as that user. There was no prompts, no prompt for username, no prompt for password. It's very slick. Probably specialized cases where that's useful, but it definitely is useful. Other ways of doing that would be to use a VBA script that you can run. If you start AccuTerm from a VBA script, AccuTerm will start the script, and the script can open a session, and then do things like wait for the username prompt, feed the prompt, wait for the password prompt, feed the answer, and it allows you to build an automated login that way. There are some sample scripts that are included with AccuTerm on how to do that, and you can take those as kind of a starting point. Another common way is a macro recorder, where you just basically say record a macro, and the macro records you opening your session and logging in, and you save it, attach it to a key, and you're automatically logged in when you press the key. So another common question is, when my user's logged in, I don't want them to click the X in the corner of AccuTerm, because that'll kill my process, and they might be in the middle of some complicated order, and if they click the X and the process goes away, well, what am I going to do? There's a way using customized menus and scripting so that you can trap that action and redirect it to a script, and the script can say, oh, is that session still connected? Then don't let them do it. There are some examples of this. There's a script that comes with AccuTerm called custexit, and there's several discussions on the AccuTerm forum, forum.zumasys.com. Just search for custexit or disable close, and you'll find some real interesting topics on how to do that. And background pictures. So AccuTerm 7.1, I think, introduced the idea of being able to put a picture as your screen background. So any place where the screen would be at normal color can be shown through as an image with, you can adjust the contrast or the, how transparent that picture is. But it's very cool because you can do things like use that as a way to identify, is this session connected to server A or server B? Or am I running the the payroll app or the accounting app? So very, very cool things that you can do just by changing background images on your sessions. And those are changeable programmatically. So they don't have to be set when the session's defined, but the application can change just by sending a URL for what the new background picture is going to be. AccuTerm Web deployment. This is just kind of an overall view of how you would set up AccuTerm Web. First, the normal case would be to identify a set of users you want to use to see, just how the application works. Typically, they're going to be normal users and then maybe some admins. Those would be like your roles. Create some initial profile or two that are used to access your application. Install the AccuTerm IO server, which is what Patrick was talking about. And then let your pilot users run the application and make adjustments to your settings as you need to get it tuned down to where it works the way you want. And once you're done with that, then you can use the bulk import to bring in the rest of your users. So it's just kind of an overview of how to get started using AccuTerm Web. So this is kind of our AccuTerm roadmap. The 2018 with AccuTerm release 7.4, I think everybody pretty much knows what that is. That's just history. AccuTerm 8.0 in the middle, that's where we are now. So we have the web, the desktop, mobile, browser interface, new color schemes, tear-off tabs, new licensing and centralized administration for profiles. The bulk import of users is a new feature in the portal, and the fact that you need your subscription to keep you up to date now with AccuTerm maintenance. So the more exciting part is in the right-hand side with AccuTerm 8.1. These are some of the features that are coming in the next half in the first half of next year. So we're going to be really busy. That's where we're going. And as Patrick mentioned, we're trying to kind of shoot towards getting a common code base for all the versions of AccuTerm. That right now, the desktop is significantly different than the web and mobile. Mobile and web are very similar, but they will all eventually converge. Features that we're going to be adding to both the web and mobile versions are AccuTerm GUI, yay, file transfer, nailed ports, which is just basically a way to say, send this particular tag from one end to the other as an environment variable so I can see it coming in and associate it with some nailed port type scheme I need on the server. And a way to do slave printing where you can print documents from your application through AccuTerm. Features coming to AccuTerm Web. The AccuTerm IO server right now only supports Linux, but we will be adding Windows next year. And the ability to embed AccuTerm in a different web page. So that you'll be able to have, say, your own company website and an AccuTerm window appear in it. AccuTerm Desktop, we'll be adding secure web sockets, so we're on the same level of connectivity as the mobile and web versions. Improve file transfer and add resume for Windows users. And what I ran out of room here is what's coming to AccuTerm Mobile. So AccuTerm Mobile is going to be made into a new app that is using AccuTerm IO to authenticate the users instead of being a pay-for app. So instead of having to buy it in the App Store with money, you'll get it from the App Store for free, and then to use it, you'll have to log in with your email and your password through AccuTerm IO. It will also have WebSocket connections, sharing profiles from the customer portal with the web version, and basically just updating the features in the mobile that have, so that they kind of match what we have in the web, things like images and sounds and VBA scripting. So just kind of bring it up to date. So that is, that's the end of my part here. Sorry, I've gone a little over here. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul to wrap things up for you.
Great, thanks, Pete. Appreciate all your work on this, and we're excited about the future. What I wanted to do is just talk to you a little bit about maintenance and upgrade options. I also wanted to encourage you to tell us what you like and dislike. For example, many of you have service counters where maybe people don't have email addresses in your company, and you didn't necessarily need the 2-for-1 feature, and that's what drove us to quickly come out with device licensing. So just know that we're open to your feedback. As far as maintenance and upgrade options, AccuTerm 7 customers can upgrade to 8 simply by buying maintenance. And not most of you, a good percentage of you on this call have done so. If you do that before or after January 1st, a small upgrade fee will apply. So try and get your maintenance in before the end of the year. If you're on an older release like 2K2, you can upgrade for the modest fee before December 31st. After that, it'll be a new purchase. We only sell AccuTerm with maintenance, first-year maintenance. You can let it drop, as Pete said, and just back out some of the advanced features, the bundle with web and mobile, etc. And again, GUI and file transfer we know is on the top of everybody's mind for AccuTerm Web, and we're diligently working on that. I wanted to add this, which is, generally people don't like change, and this has been a product that has been just a stalwart in the market for years. But I hope you look at this as this is foundational change. You're getting 3 products for 1. And even if you don't need web or mobile today, I highly encourage you to sign up for maintenance. It is the best bargain since, I was Googling, trying to figure out what the best bargains were, but maybe the best bargain since we bought Louisiana from Napoleon. It supports continued innovation on our part, and maintenance really facilitates that. And it's part of what we've been used to in our database license world for a long time. So we're simply adding this to AccuTerm so that we can continue to innovate. The master of all things AccuTerm, besides Pete, is a wonderful friend named Jill Orsini. Her email is very small on the screen, but you'll be getting several emails from her following this webinar. If you have questions on any functionality, please email Jill at the address there. And also visit the new AccuTerm webpage. There's a ton of FAQs and videos, as have been mentioned. Thank you very much for participating. If we don't speak to you guys prior, I hope you all have I can't believe it's happy holidays time already, but a great Thanksgiving, and know that this is just the beginning for Zumasys and AccuTerm, and pay attention for many more innovations and excitement in the coming year. We're just getting started. Thank you.